Coming through. So, hello, beautiful ones. Welcome to an illumination conversation with my friend Sydney Jean, who is an elemental wisdom guide, coach, elemental priestess, and well, coach, elemental priestess.
Sorry.
That's okay. I know that echo, no matter how much you turn off the volume
Yeah.
on Facebook, it'll always start back up again. So, yeah, I'm so excited to have a conversation with you, especially with your new purple hue, which is absolutely mesmerizing. And you know, it's one of my favorites. So, thank you for bringing this color activation. It's just, if I'm ever like zoned out, it's because I'm like, ooh, pretty lights.
I love this. Like, it's just my plant light, but it just like, I love the ambiance that it gives my room in general. So I always have it on.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, we're going to talk today about the power that we hold inside of us to be creators. And this is something that I have witnessed Sydney over the last 2 years really activate within her. She's been part of my Creation Coach Academy and been through the Oracle card certification, working with the Elemental Forces of Creation Oracle deck. But Sydney, you have really learned how to like live and embody this wisdom from the elements. And I've witnessed your confidence and your power just absolutely just grow over the last while. And when we were chatting privately, I was like, oh my gosh, we need to have a conversation that other people can hear because there's so many keys and codes that you are living and that you're also bringing forward into the world, for which I am very grateful because people need to hear this stuff.
Yeah, I'm like getting goosebumps just like, and what you're saying, because it's so true. Just like the amount of embodiment that I've had in just these like short few months of really rooting into the powers that the elements have specifically, and then using the other qualities of the elements that kind of I see them like trickle down below, and the power is like they support the power in and of itself. And so like I've really been able to root into and connect with each individual power and how they are supported by the rest of the elements, and really being able to embody that in these last couple months. And it's taken a lot of time to lead here, but it's also been a really quick shift in me as well that I've noticed. And just these, like, I would say the last like 2 to 3 months have been massively changing as far as making that connection that much deeper from where I started 2 years ago with the elements.
Oh, I love it. Goosebumps all around too. So if you're watching this, you're also going to receive this energetic activation if you're open to it as we speak in. And you've actually entered a sacred space. Sydney was kind enough to call in sacred space for us before we went live, which is a practice that we start in the all the trainings that I do, because I want to work in this divinely connected and activated space where we co-create with spirit, with the divine, with the elements, with Gaia, so that we don't have to do this stuff alone. And when you create these spaces, the energy just moves and flows. So I'd love to hear, whether you're live or on the replay, if you feel it at any point in time, because yeah, her and I are already deeply immersed in it. And we were just like, wow, so good. And I've already done a client session today that was also so powerful. Gaia, the consciousness of the planet, was so present and so palpably around us, which she always is in my work. But this was a beautiful introduction for a friend. I was like, let me let you feel this. And the love and support and the energy, I mean, she called it overwhelming. And she's like, I'm sorry, I'm crying. But it's like, don't worry, my eyes are leaking too, because when I connect with the earth itself and with all of the elements and with this beautiful sacred energy, like I can't help but be moved to tears most of the time. It's such a palpable, tangible feeling. So I'd love to start there, working in sacred space and feeling that energy. Like, what's that like for you?
Absolutely. For me, it's like it's the foundation of the container that we create and these connections that we have. So when we are with clients, or we're with, even just our own sacred practices, like I like to pull cards multiple times a day, or, tune in to different things when I'm trying to create a new program or do something. And so every time it's like I create this bubble and this container, and then Gaia gets to come in and support that. My highest self gets to come in and support that. And the elements get to come in and support those containments and containers that we create in these connections and these interactions. And that's been something that has uplifted my entire practice in and of itself. And I feel like, because before I met you, I did have a setting sacred space practice, but it has just been amplified and intensified, and in the best way possible, to create more support within the container itself. And I just feel like by speaking to that when you're creating these containers makes a massive shift in the possibilities that are within that, because you're actually evoking something, you're calling that thing in, versus just not, or expecting it to be there. It's actually asking for that support. And that creates that free will of choice that we have, because, things can't necessarily always step in unless we ask them to either. So because we have free will of choice, and they can't necessarily intervene in that free will with, the earthly realm, by evoking that, by calling that in, by asking for that support, it creates that more intensity. It's not that they're not always there, they are always there, but when we actually do the calling in of sacred space, I feel like it makes a massive difference in my practice when I do and when I don't.
Hugely different. And it basically, like what you're saying, they're always there, they're always around. It's not like this conversation wouldn't be sacred in and of itself. Everything is sacred and mundane all at the same time, but that evoking and calling in that we do in this very ceremonial way, even if it's only like a 30-second or 10-second like breath and like invitation for them to come closer and to actually work with us, means you don't have to freaking do it alone. Think that's a huge shift for a lot of practitioners and healers and people that want to work, with energy, is that we're sometimes trying to run it from our own battery and do it alone. And I mean, nothing, we're just over that, right? Like the energy of being separate from spirit is very, last paradigm. We are evolving into this more unified, connected experience. And so the more that you can play in that on purpose, the more magic you get to access.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Because I noticed that, like I said, I noticed that difference of when I do and when I don't. Like if I don't make the conscious effort to ask for these things or to connect to these things, and I'm just trying to support it all within my own being, without the support of, my teams and Gaia and the ethereal realms and things of that nature, it is a huge difference in the amount of capacity that I have to be able to hold as well, it feels like. Yeah.
I love that. So I teach this in all of my like certification programs and inside my courses. We're always calling in sacred space before we do the work. So if you're like, well, what do you mean call in sacred space? If you go take any one of my courses or even the free activations inside Luminous Evolution, there's always that element, and you can do it on your own. But working with the specific elements has been such a powerful gift too, because think everybody that's watching this wants to really tap into their power to create, right? We feel like or manifest, or whatever you want to call it, to make something happen. And there's this conversation I want to have with you about taking your freaking power back, because I know you've been talking about that a lot online here. And we're really seeing this division of worlds where people are having two very different experiences on the planet, like infinite different experiences, but there's this polarity, this duality of people that are having life just happen at them and to them, and it's just all kinds of being pushed around by what is happening in the external, and then people that have been doing the work to really get anchored into their own energetic field and be focused on creating or co-creating with life. And that distinction keeps getting bigger and wider and bigger and wider. And I think it's important for us to speak into the possibilities and the difference between it. And I'm just going to pimp out my energy update tomorrow is going to be for the September energy update, and it'll give you a little bit more information on like what and how that you can work with the two distinct energies that are coming in for people. But yeah, life happening to you, life happening for you, life happening through you. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing that everywhere too. I completely agree. And I am observing and watching people and having conversations with people. And it's very much this duality of perspective and understanding and what people are seeing and choosing to see. And that's the big thing that I'm like really pulling at right now. And that is what has pushed me into creating the program that I'm creating right now and putting out in the world, is the choice. The power of the choices at what we're seeing and what we're looking at is the big thing that yes, there's this duality taking place, but it is in the perspective, and the power of our choice is really what I'm pulling at right now. And that is very much, like I said, on track with what you're speaking to as far as this life is happening to me versus life is happening for me. Because we could take the same scenario of I lost my job, and somebody could go, life's happening to me, this is so horrible, I don't know what I'm gonna do, da 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 da, like list goes on. Or we can choose to be like, okay, what is this opportunity presenting me? What am I releasing right now so that I can step into this next space and place of my life? What can I let go of that wasn't serving me in that experience? And how did that getting fired from my job or letting go of that, you see where I'm like getting at? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I'm kind of trailing. So it's like,
no, it's that that power of the perspective, right? How are you choosing to view the lens? So we work like with the elements as this template to understand all of reality. And what I keep hearing with this conversation, because there's earth, air, fire, water, and then spirits in the middle. I wish I had my card to show everybody how these all interact and interrelate, but spirit's always in the middle. And I'm hearing the spirit power of choice is always something we can access, but we don't always know we have a choice until we like somehow access that perspective of, oh my gosh, I have a choice. And then the perspective piece is the air realm, which is the mental realm, which is basically saying you could look at it this way, you could look at it this way, you could look at it in like infinite different permutations. What are you going to choose to perceive? But again, there's this piece where I think unless we somehow know that we even have a choice, we might just be acting on default and just running through all of our belief systems that we've been programmed into having by society and the people who came before us and the people who taught us, right? Our ancestors or our teachers, our parents that might be saying, if this happens, then you have to believe that this is the reason why, and this is how you have to act. And there is this like, with power of choice, there is this uncoupling from all of the other people's perspectives, all of the other people's beliefs, all of the other shoulds and have tos and all of that, and going, what do I actually want? What do I desire? What is like for me? What do I want to consciously choose instead of
absolutely.
running all that old stuff?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because like I noticed that when it comes to this blend of spirit and air, the mental realm, is if we are running from this pre-programmed paradigm of our belief systems, and we aren't rooting into the power of our choices, where is it that our intentions are actually lying? How can we actually root into that power of intention if we are running from this place of disempowerment in our choices?
With every conversation I have, every communication, I'm always like, there's a card for that. There's a card for that. This because the cards that we work with, that we do readings with, we bring into our coaching sessions and our workshops, that represent all of these different elemental powers and elemental teachings, they make up all that is. They make up the unified field of creation and how reality works. So I'm just laughing because there's 90 of these cards, and I had a few out of me in front of me, and I'm like, oh yeah, this right here and that right here. It's like the fundamentals of the universe right here in
Mhm.
this really easy to digest and play with way.
Yeah,
Yeah, that intersection between the air realm and spirit, I think, is such an important one for us to start with, because there's this unconscious life that people can be living when they're in that life is happening to me and they feel disempowered. And then there's the shift where we bring our power to light, to consciousness, to our awareness, and we go, oh, I guess I do have a choice. I guess I am able to maybe not change the circumstances, but shift how I'm perceiving them, how I'm believing things to be. And then from that place, I can start to take steps to change my reality.
absolutely. And that is like the whole premise of what I'm working on and the things that I'm wanting to put out in the world, is because when we hand the power back to the individual, when we create this empowerment within the individual person in earth, the power to stand on your own, that is when we are going to start to get those changes. That is when we're going to start to get the innovations and the creativity. But it isn't until the people, individuals, are able to truly claim their personal power, are they able to connect within community and create those changes and create that connection between one another and between the mass consciousness of our planet. It's that need to stand in your own power while additionally being connected to the whole and the mass. But until we do one, the other is not going to conspire in a way that is going to support the whole, if that makes sense. It's
Totally.
kind of how I'm seeing it right now.
Been really seeing this, like, until we choose to access that power, we wind up being interrelated and connected to people in this really codependent way, and it's very needy, and it's not very balanced, it's not harmonious, and it doesn't give anyone their power, right? It's like just siphoning power in all kinds of weird energy vampire ways, all kinds of energetic cords. It's off balance. People are resentful because they're not getting what they need, or all of that, like from other people or for themselves. And then there's the opposite piece, or maybe it's not opposite, but like the balanced version where people are sovereign in themselves. They activate that Earth's primary power to stand on your own. And then you can interrelate with people in this like interdependent way, more like being part of an ecosystem, as opposed to being codependent and like overly reliant and just all kinds of heavy energy of like interpersonal dynamics that just feel icky and don't feel very good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like when we actually take, like, it's almost like that was the thing that in the conversation that you had commented on a bunch, was like, it's time to put our stake in the sand. It's time to say that this is mine. It is not for me to have this happen to me. It is my choice of where I'm giving my power to. It is my choice of what I am, putting my energy into, what I am choosing to create, how I'm choosing to think, so it's all rooting back into this primary power of choice from spirit. Is how are you standing on your own? What are you choosing to do to place that as a focal point of your existence? And the more and more that we place that stake in the sand and say, this is my power. I get to choose where I put it. I get to do what is going to best serve me at the end of the day, and not people please my way through life in those codependent aspects. The more that we become that sovereign being, the more that you start to be in this place where I'm in, where it's like, okay, am I going to choose in every single micro moment where I'm placing my energy and my power and my essence and the things that I'm wanting to create, even when I have those hard conversations, even when I have, those conflicts in my relationships and stuff. Am I going to give my power away to this and let this rule my mental and emotional state? Or am I going to reclaim what is rightfully mine and say, okay, how do I want to look at this? How do I want to feel about this? And what is going to put me in a place of support and safety in my body so that I can move forward in a place of power? And that's really like what is, it feels like it's required of us right now to really be in that place of the one side or the other,
It's definitely the energy right now. I just did a session today, and as I was saying, this energy came through that was so much like emphasis on you have to take your power back. It's non-negotiable. There was this energy that was like, the time is now, there's no other option. You are just going to be spun off into basically your own personal hellscape, or you'll continue to play out that. Like it really felt like it was essential. Like no longer could you play the game of giving your power away. It's just going to have devastating consequences, I feel like right now, if we don't have that. And I was fussing around a little bit with my cards because I didn't pull the power to stand on your own card before. And I just wanted to share this, the power to stand on your own, because I think sometimes reading it and seeing it can be really potent and really powerful. And I just curious though, you're talking about all of this power and how you get to choose about the circumstances and how you're going to feel about them. But like, what about real feelings? What about the very real feelings that come up, and how can you not like spiritually bypass or gaslight yourself into thinking that everything is okay because I'm a powerful being, so it's fine?
Yeah, I had played in that for sure. Like, because like you and I are like in that as far as, being the great life experimenter, and like, we got to trial and error our way through things. And um, so I very much understand this lens that can be perceived through, oh, well, if I'm just grateful and if I'm just like standing in my power and I'm just choosing the right way, that everything will work out and everything will be fine. And when we are doing that and negating, that is when that spiritual bypassing comes into place. So at least from my personal experience, is pretty much the only thing I can speak to, and watching, observing other people as well, is that when those emotions arise, it is allowing that safe space within you for them to be accepted, for them to be seen, for them to be heard, for them to be understood, because that is what we want from others. We want others to see us, to understand us, to hear us. But until we hold that space in that container for ourselves, how are we supposed to do that for somebody else? Or how are we ever supposed to receive that from somebody else? So the more and more that I have an emotion, a perceived negative, come up of sadness or anger or, disease or whatever, it's just allowing myself to see it, to feel it, to allow it to be there, and not try to push it away or negate it, but feel it in the body. Where is it showing up? What is it doing? Where is it wanting to go? How is this wanting to be expressed right now? Okay, now that I have that information grid, then I can, do something with it. I can start to make choices to shift it, to change it, to move my body, to sit in meditation, to use my tools, right? So it's not that we're negating in these choices of, oh, I'm only standing in my power, but in that, in the safety and the security and the recognition of the emotional space, and bringing love and compassion and understanding and safety and security to those areas within us, we are rooting into our power. We are choosing. So it's that perception again of how are we perceiving these emotions. you know?
Mhm. I do, because this is like the elemental wisdom that I needed the most about 15 years ago when I was initiated into working with the elements. So the emotional realm, and as we said before, we have the 5 different realms. We have the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the action realm. But water is the emotional realm. And I had no clue how to work with that. I did not. I was uncomfortable with emotions. I didn't know, so I stuffed them down, and I it's good to feel the good ones, but like even that didn't feel super safe, because I would dial down my joy and my happiness, because people would be like, well, you're a little much, and things like that. And so learning to actively, consciously run the feelings through me and let myself feel them and express them on purpose, instead of just like doing whatever I had been programmed to do, which, by society was probably that, like, just stuff it down and keep a stiff upper lip and all of that, right? I started to choose to let them flow through me instead of getting stuck inside of me. And it changed my entire experience of like life on earth. It was such a gift. I
Yeah,
have a
I
card.
mean,
Can you guess which
y-
card?
oh, sorry. Oh,
Clean,
clean and clear
clear
current.
emotional current. Like this comes up, this comes for you a lot in readings with clients and stuff.
I haven't been using the card so much in like client sessions. It's more of just been an intuitive thing, but that came up for me yesterday. So I was like, oh,
Of
that's
course it
funny
did.
for my full moon reading.
Yeah, with the full moon, this is a very, very powerful one, especially because it's a full moon in Pisces, which is this water sign. And this is the greatest teaching of the water thing for me. I think it's like the most important um, developmental task of water is to teach us how to run a clear and clean current. And when we don't feel our feelings, things just get stuck in us. And then I like to equate it to like a stagnant swamp, right? Disgusting mess. And then you're kind of stinky. It's gross. We don't want to be a swamp. We want to be like have these feelings that flow through us like a river, and then they don't get stuck anywhere. And I'm sure you have had this experience where when you really allow yourself to feel the feelings, they just kind of then dissipate. They don't stick to you when you let them frickin' flow, and then you have a clear and clean current.
Absolutely. And that was funny because that's like two that I pulled up, and it's kind of a different perspective, but I pulled up illumination, which is seeing the emotions for what they are, allowing them to be illuminated and to be, seen in the light. And then the divine feminine is that flow. It's that flow aspect within our energy, and the side that creating that balance that we're kind of speaking to here and there is allowing that flow to take place within our beingness and our body.
Yes. And then when we can do that, we have all this space. And I think that creating enough space inside your energy field is one of the most important things we can cultivate, especially right now. In fact, the membership that I just launched, that you're part of, the Creator Codes, is all about making enough space to expand our capacity for creation. And when I say creation, it's manifestation, making things happen, actually like taking your dreams and visions and goals and taking that formless into form. And so many people get stuck at the overwhelm part because they just don't have enough room. So they have a desire, they have a dream, they might even have an intention, but there's literally not enough space in their energetic field to let the seeds of those intentions actually grow into something.
Yeah. And I feel like that just roots right back into the power of choice is like, where are we choosing to create from? Are we choosing to create from that super overwhelmed bubble that is filled up with all of that stuff and we're over full? Or are we going to choose to clear that out and create from a place of clarity and a place of spaciousness?
Mm, yeah. And when we're overwhelmed, we shut down, right? Our shields go up, we don't feel safe, it just feels heavy and dense and blah. And there's no room to connect with spirit, there's no room to access our creativity and our logic and our intuition and our magic. Like, it's really hard to function from that space. And I'm really noticing so much of the work that I'm doing personally and supporting my clients in, and just noticing everybody needs, is that ability to open up their energy and have that space so they're not overwhelmed by everything that's even trying to come in. Actually, I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, and I don't even have to mention her name, but I have a friend who recently just had a massive download of something big. But before it was able to come in, she was feeling really like anxious and like something was pressing on her and like it was too much. And it's just like she was like, ugh. And as soon as she made enough energetic space, this whole download was able to just land fully formed. And she was like, oh, that's what that was. It's this idea, it's this energy of holding this whole big project that she's doing. And without that space, she couldn't actually access it. And it just felt like too much. So I feel like for those that are like, how and what, like, what's my sole purpose? What's my mission? What am I here to do? Like, even that part can't come in when we don't have enough space. And we
Yeah.
spin in the how, but how? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, like, I couldn't even like see any of that or any possible programs or anything that wanted to come through until I created that clean and clear channel, until I allowed those emotions to move and flow, and until I, made clear, like created a clearer space within my mental realm and made the choices that were going to, support me and create that spaciousness that we're speaking to is my purpose. I was like, you can't see it until there is that clarity there. Otherwise, you are creating from the swampy bog, yuckiness that, you know, doesn't it doesn't come across to others as a place of empowerment either. And, or in authenticity, because when we're bogged down by all of this and we're, swimming in the swamps, how are we ever supposed to see the magnificence that we are, or the clarity of, these goddess spaces and these elevated lenses that can shine our light through all of that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are trying to skip those foundational steps. That's what I see a lot of people. And even I will say a lot of people in the coaching and healing and teaching space, they're heart-centered people who maybe are entrepreneurs, and or they want to be one and they know they've got an impact to make on the planet. They're here to share their gifts. And I feel like there's oftentimes this inability to step into the fullness because they aren't like we don't focus enough on the basics. And the one of the most important basics is clearing out and like weeding the garden, clearing out everything that we're not. You know what I mean? All of that old stuff. Tending our entire essence. And when people are full of other people's stuff or their own stuff, their traumas, their dramas, their life story, their stresses, and it's all closed off and it's clogged and it's swampy, like yeah, because creating from that place is just gonna be like it's got this energy of like, meh, meh. Like
Yeah.
it's not gonna be the magic that we desire.
Well, and I can say it from personal experience. I've tried that. I have so very much tried to create from that space. Even it was back in, I think, February was when when I was releasing a one-on-one program, The Unfiltered You. And that came out with this just like, ugh. And in the midst of doing the master class, I got sick and I just kept powering through it, trying to just like, instead of allowing my body and vessel to recover and do what it needed to do and to clean and clear and do all these things, I just like, no, I'm just going to keep trudging through the muck and the yuck and it didn't work. It didn't work at all. Nobody signed up. Nothing happened. Like, I had people on the master class and stuff, and that was great. And it was good content, but because my energetic space and my physical vessel wasn't in tune and in alignment and clean and clear, it didn't work. And it's just kind of, we've got to remember that, that's how it is now. This is how, especially if you're wanting to be a leader, if you're wanting to be a coach, if you're wanting to put out programs, if you're wanting to do these things, like, and you are called to be the, mystic mentor and all of these things, like, it takes those foundational pieces. It takes that power. It takes that clarity. It takes that essence expression. It takes, that authenticity to show up, because that's what people want. They want that. And they are going to be called forward from that space. But if you're calling them forward from this muck and this just blah, putting something out there from a bogged down place, it's not going to work. And I can say that from personal experience.
Yeah, I think it's a requirement now, especially because I don't want to say the market is saturated, but there are so many people out there sharing their programs and their gifts and doing things, especially in the online realm, that the energetic integrity of the container and of the facilitator is like mandatory. And I think that things have shifted so much on the planet in terms of the amount of light that's coming. There's so much illumination that you can't get away with keeping it like under the rug and keeping it hidden anymore. It's gonna come out one way or another. And so doing our personal work to clear and clean and excavate and do all of this foundational stuff, the it's the only way forward, I think.
It's become our personal responsibility to take care of the individual before the external. And that's what I'm like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is why I'm speaking to what I'm speaking to lately, and keep bringing more power into the vocal frequencies that I'm sharing, is because the individual is the primary before the external even is a forethought. It is necessary for us to care for ourselves so that we can be a part of the bigger communities, so that we can support others, so that we can be in relation with others. It all boils down to making sure that we are standing in our power, we are standing in our authenticity, we are clean and clear, we are holding space for ourselves, we are, all of these things that the elements speak to, like all of these qualities are first within us, embodying that wholeness, and then going out in the world and
I
doing
wish
the
I could
thing.
be fast enough with like the 90 cards, because it's like, oh, there's a card for that to what you speak. There's a card to that for what you're speaking into.
Yeah. And I think that's really because I've spent so much time sitting with the elements and creating my own individual connection to them, my own empowerment with them, doing the work with each individual element, and allowing myself to just be like immersed in my own personal experience so that I can go out and help others with these things as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible the work that you can do with the elements as an archetypal template for understanding how to do life. Like that is the most amazing way to sum it up. Truly, it's like how to do life on earth. The instruction manual you were never given is actually inside this unified field template where we have to harmonize the physical, which is represented as earth, and the mental realm, which is represented as air, the emotional realm represented as water, the action realm represented as fire, and that's illumination and transformation, and then spirit, that ineffable. Like we, in this time where we're now coming into this unified thing where we can't play in the game of separation anymore, we can't leave any part of us behind. We have to be able to juggle all of this in wholeness.
Yeah. It's bringing all the fractals of our being back into our own container so that we can express,
Yeah.
we can radiate, we can, illuminate and move forward in the direction towards our purpose,
Mhm.
towards our, desires and the things that we actually want to be doing on this planet. Because that's a big thing. Until you are whole and being able to, be clear so that you can radiate, how are you ever supposed to truly step into that power of your purpose
Mm.
and do the things that you're meant to be doing on this planet? And it's not to anybody's fault. It's not that, it was your fault that you were disempowered or that you got disconnected from yourself. Like that's one thing that I always try to make a point of. It's not anybody's fault that this happened. It's the programs, it's the conditioning, it's the, society and the circumstances and the environments that we were brought up in. We don't have to continue to live in that. We don't have to choose to stay in those mindsets and those places and spaces. We can choose to take a different road, a different path at any point, any place.
So we talked about the power of your choice as being the foundation choice, and this is spirit, right? Like once you know you have a choice, then you can do and access everything else. We've talked about the power, a little bit about the power of intention. And then there's also powers. Oh, we talked about the power to stand on your own. Somehow I put that card away, but let's talk about the two remaining ones, just to really give people an idea here. And there's also other powers. There's level 2 powers. There's all kinds of more, but like more. But the power of action and the power of love still want to be illuminated. So where do you want to dive in with these?
I mean, I always like to go to the power of love first, because I feel like for me and my experiences with the elements, the power of action is always at the end. Like, and it's funny because like we talked about this like 6-7 months ago, where it was like I'm flipping how I see the elements and the what order they're placed in. So I start with spirit. I start in that place, and then I go to earth, and then I go to love, and then I go to air, and then I go to fire, and how
There,
I run
there's
through
no
them, even though
one
that
way
they
to
just,
do it.
yeah, exactly. But yeah,
Yeah. So tell me about the power of love. Like, that sounds kind of lame. Oh, the power of love. It's a song. Who's that song by? Like, that's such an 80s rock kind of thing.
yeah, I was
Now,
like, for me and the power of love, and what really came through when I was speaking to the power specifically in the last little bit of my launch and the things I was doing, was that we tend to give this away a lot. And we tend to expect love to come from some external source rather than from in our internal beingness. Yet, from my perspective and the things that I've experienced, love can only ever come from within us, because if we do not have that open container for love to be experienced within us, how are we ever supposed to receive it from outside of ourselves? How are we ever supposed to see it through our lensing if we can't even hold a container within our being to experience it? And that was a big one that stepped forward, was the experience of love within our vessel, within our body. And how can we root into, and I was really getting this tandem between the power to stand on our own and the power of love, is how can we stand in our own sovereign being and hold this container for ourselves to experience love within the physical vessel.
The one place where I've brought people to be able to experience it, even if they can't, like through their own heart, access it, has actually been with Gaia. If someone is like just not quite able to access that self-love, Gaia, the consciousness of this planet, I've been able to bring people into experiences where they feel that love in a way that they've never felt it before. And also, she's not actually separate from us. We're literally like made of her. So it's still an internal experience.
Yeah.
It's,
Which I like that. I like that a lot. And I think that's maybe a big piece of where I've experienced a lot of that, is in those activations with Gaia, is just experiencing that place where we're, for me and how I experience it, is being held. Like it's just really that feeling of being held. Like a baby. Like I feel like a baby just like caressed in her arms and just like held and actually supported, and knowing that like it's that motherly energy of like, there's nothing you could do that would ever make me not love you. And it's that unconditional love. So I very much love that that is where you take that, because it is an internal experience. We are made of all of that.
yeah, exactly. And this is something that I think we have been divorced from in, when I'm speaking generally Western society. There's lots of cultures within, the entire planet that haven't. But if we're talking about like the Western capitalist patriarchal society that's kind of pervasive right now where we live, at least, that power of love, the power of being connected to that divine feminine energy that is the cradle with which we are born and live our entire existence and die, like we are inside that energy. And she is so freaking powerful and loving, yet fierce and like potent. But she's also willing to take all of our burdens and be like, hey, now, like, you don't actually have to try to hold this. I've so often brought you and other people into communion with Gaia, and she's like, just give it to me. Like, you're not built to hold this kind of heaviness and density. And she'll help, because she's this alchemist, right? The earth is built to recycle energy from death and decay and like dirty water, whatever, and purify it and clean it and turn the death and decay of a plant or an animal literally into new life. So this is what she is masterful at. So when we're trying to hang on to that like stinky, stagnant, dead stuff inside, it just starts to kill us, right? Like actually, literally, it will. Goes
Yep.
from dis-ease to disease. So she is
Mhm.
like, would you please utilize me, use my power instead of trying to hold it on your own? And let's filter this and give you the space to actually be yourself, not be holding.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I noticed in myself too when I try to hold something versus like dropping into even a quick meditation, like you said, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and just like let it flow out the bottoms of my feet or out the back of my spine, and just let it go and give it to Gaia, and like knowing that I don't have to handle that, that I can evoke Gaia and ask her to support me, to hold me, and to take those burdens is like that's a power in and of itself.
It
And just
is.
allowing that to take place. And I feel like that's a loving act for self. Like all of these choices that imbues over it are all loving acts towards our own individuality.
Yeah. Well, there's this paradoxical consciousness too, because like that earth power to stand on your own also includes connecting with Gaia and being like connected to everything. And how can both of these things be true at once? And it's like we're standing on our own, but together in this connection as opposed to that codependence, right?
Mhm.
It's really fascinating. I also would love your thoughts. I heard someone somewhere say that they didn't actually like the practice of giving our gunk to Gaia, to the earth. She's like, "Oh, that's so gross. Like, why would you give somebody that you love all of your shit?"
Well, I mean, when you say, and I agree with, that's her job, why wouldn't she want to take that on from you? So, and I think about it like, okay, when we have a relationship with somebody else, whether that, I mean, I'm thinking like my partner, for instance, when I have a relationship with him, he wants to help me. He wants to support me. He wants to do everything that he can possibly do to make my life that much better or to help me or to serve me or whatever. And it's an equal energy exchange in that I want the same thing to do for him and to help support him. And if I need to pick up his gunk or his baggage for the day to help, you know, so I can take on more of the kids' support or this or that so that we can, he can recuperate or recover, it's that exchange. So if somebody's wanting to support you, if Gaia's wanting to come up and take your gunk for you, why would you resist that? Why would you say, oh no, I'm just going to keep holding on to this, even though it's not serving me and supporting you? When that's literally her job. Her job is to recycle your gunk. She needs it. If you really want to take that perspective, wouldn't she need it so that she could create something new from it? But that's a perspective as well. am I going to take the perspective and choose to think that this is a bad exchange, that I'm giving her my garbage? Or am I going to think, oh, I'm actually giving her something as nutrients so that she can compost it, so that she can create something beautiful out of it? So there's that choice in your perspective of what you're choosing to believe.
Mhm. Exactly. And if there's one thing about giving something to someone who can't handle it, and then giving something to someone who is literally designed to do that.
Mhm.
And I know that when we create that space internally, and then we can run our that cosmic energy all the way through us and into the earth, which is another practice that we do a lot. And she's getting that cosmic light through us. She loves when we turn into these clear and clean bridges for that light to flow through and into her. And then we can actually do our work in the world, and we can support her through our actions, right? It's she doesn't want all the gunk, like, recycle, and like we shouldn't be raping and pillaging and doing all of that
Yeah.
stuff. Like it's like, what is the equal and fair exchange that is going to work for everybody, and
Mhm.
creating that ecosystem
Yeah.
really where, yeah, it might not be directly reciprocal, but then you can go and do your soul work and help another person or another, plant or an animal through your work, and then through that you are supporting her. So it's like, energy exchanges aren't always reciprocal, and I see a lot of people get hung up on that, like, if somebody's doing something for me, I had to do something back for them. But sometimes it's more like that ecosystem where, it's like the tree gives the nutrients to the fungi, who then give it to other plants, and animals eat the plants, and it moves through.
Exactly. And I love that you made that point, because I had a recent like revelation, kind of, I guess, more on like the money side and money beliefs and stuff. And it was really about how when I pay something, whether that be a bill, whether that be whatever, yes, I'm giving something, but that's trickling out into support. It's paying somebody's paycheck, which is therefore paying somebody's rent, which is therefore paying the landlord. And it's this trickle effect of how that exchange is taking place, because it's continuing to flow. And eventually it may circle back through that same source, or it may come through a different channel, but it's
Mhm.
still that flow of energy and how the energy flows. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be this, okay, because I helped this person, they have to equally help me back. What if that help is coming from another source?
Mm. That feels so good, and it feels like how nature intended it to work, right? Like, we are part of an ecosystem, and we can forget that sometimes.
Yeah,
Ugh.
it's like that network. And I love when you talk about the fungi. And then when you first brought that up, that's like one of my favorite places to go, because it's that neural network. And it's the same within our body, the neurological network through our nervous system, and all these things are all interconnected. But it's that same flow as like, even though something fires and wires down this way, it may not come back up that same way. It may go down a different way and come up a different. So there's
Mm.
always a there's always an equal exchange. It's just how it shows up is not going to be exactly reciprocal in the same channel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that really sounds to me, when we're talking about it, as like the allowing and the creating of the flow of that, especially when it comes to money, but everything else as well. It's actually surrendering the control and needing to control how it goes. Like, when we allow things to flow, then we're kind of letting nature take its course, the universe work the way that it can in its most aligned and creative capacity, instead of going, it has to be like this. So when we say it has to be like this, and then it's not, we get disappointed. And then we're like, oh, nothing ever works. My manifestations never have come to fruition. Like,
Life is happening to me.
that's right.
We
So
fall
that
into the trap.
last power that we need to talk about is the power of action. And that's where life is happening through you, right? As you are co-creating with everything. And that does include action. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about, like, oh, what do people need to hear about that right now?
For me, it is like a trickle through all of the powers. So like the power of the action is like here, and it's running through all of the powers to create this action point and this movement. And so when you make the power to choose, like when you root into your power choices and you start making those choices, and then you stand in that power of those choices that you have created, and you root into the love that is imbued within your being, and you hold that within your vessel. And then you create the intentions that are going to support all of this in alignment, and start taking action steps from that place. That is when you are going to start seeing that flow energy that we're speaking to, and how things are exchanging and showing up and moving and through all of these places and spaces. But it isn't until we come into that full alignment channel of all of the powers within our being and the things that we have opportunity at any point to root into, is the action steps going to show up that are actually going to be in alignment with the things and where we're wanting to go and how that is wanting to show up for us. So it is really, that is why in this revelation for me and the powers of the elements, I put action at the end, because I've realized in my own personal experience that it isn't until I make the choice, stand in that choice, create the love and imbue the emotion within it and set the intentions in alignment with those choices, and then take those actions all in wholeness, am I going to see the results that I actually desire, or something even better. But it's all in that creation of the entire template and all the pieces and parts that we find the power of action.
I love it. And it's just a reminder to people too that like manifestation and creation and actually getting out of the victim life is happening to me experience does take some action, right? It takes taking action. I feel like that sometimes people get stuck in the dreaming phase and working. I don't put the power of action at the end. I kind of feel like it goes through everything. I feel like it like anytime we do anything, taking a breath, that's an action, right? Making a choice, that's also an action.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's what I was just about to say, is like the power of choice. I always like see it at the beginning and the end. We start with it and we end with it, but that's an action as well. That choice is an action.
So we
Choosing
talk about
to root
things.
into your love is an action.
Yeah. We talk about these things as though they're separate, and basically they're so interwoven and multidimensional. And these are all things that like we've learned through the elements that you already knew a lot of this stuff, right? But it was a question of actually learning how to apply it and live it and understand it working together that really makes, I think, the biggest shift, or at least it did for me.
I mean, I can say the same. Like when I took the time and made the choices and actions that were going to put me in a place to root into the template and align with all of these pieces and parts and create that coherence in all aspects and fractals and pieces and parts, that is when I started to see that magic and actually feel it like radiating through my body. That's my favorite part. That's why I love fire so much, because it gets me all like warmed up and just like ready to move.
Fire's my fave too, but yeah, having a template, even if it with something as basic as the elements, to like understand all of these different parts of ourselves and try to harmonize them and balance them, has been, I think, one of the best things for me to understand my own personal power. And I know you've taken that on as well. So I think we've been talking a lot about what they are, but having embodied experiences is what takes it from that knowledge level. And like, yeah, I know this stuff. I know all of these things, to actually freaking living it. So let's tell people about the two different ways that they can actually explore some of this stuff. I know you've got a course coming up that is launching on, I think, next Friday, or
So
what is
I
it?
am actually launching it after this today. So
This
I
Friday.
I'm starting it today. And then I'm actually, the course content itself starts next Tuesday, I think. But yeah, it's a 5-day launch. It's quick.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So this is about the elements and the powers and how to work with them in your life to access your personal power, right?
Yes, absolutely. And each one of them are embodied experiences that you get to have with the elements. So it's not one of those courses where I'm going to talk at or explain. It's one of those things where I really wanted to utilize those tools that you have gifted me in, Creation Coach, is how to give somebody an experience of it, experience of how the powers relate to you as an individual, how they want to show up for you, what qualities want to support you, and how to receive your own knowledge through this rather than being taught something.
It's being taught through experience. Oh, you've made my teacher heart so happy.
Yeah,
'Cause
that was like the big
big.
potent piece, was like walking people through the experience of rooting into these qualities and then taking that into your everyday life, taking those choices into every micro moment, because that's how I got to where I am, is by living that in every experience I hold and recognizing it and seeing it within every experience I hold. Like, yeah, sometimes it takes me time to like, oh yeah, I had a choice in how I reacted to this, or I had a choice in like, how I was feeling about this, or maybe I didn't let my emotions flow. But by reflecting and taking a moment, I've been able to get faster in the actual like experience of it versus a reflection upon the experience.
It is, I think the way we all actually learn best is not being talked at, but really getting a chance to feel and comprehend at that deeper somatic level. So I am all about like teaching my coaches how to coach with embodied transformational practices that give people a chance to try this stuff on and get their own experience. So thank you so much for sharing this with the world. And I would love for you to just maybe throw a link into where people can find out more about the program, or if you guys are interested, just I'm sure you can reach out and message Sydney directly as well. Yeah.
I'm so
it-
excited. Like, I
oh,
am literally like on fire about trying, like, actually bringing this information forward in this way, and allowing the powers to step forward from the elements, because like that was one thing I always kind of like held on the back burner. And when I brought it to the forefront and gave it the recognition that it truly deserves, was when it was my whole journey changed.
tell me what the program is called again.
So the program, I haven't released it, so I'll just release it here for the first time, is called Reclamation. And it is claiming the power that is your divine birthright.
Oh my gosh, goosebumps. I love it. I'm so excited and also so grateful that you're bringing through this wisdom that I've been gifted with and then imparted to you. And it's just so wonderful because this stuff is life-changing information that I wish everybody knew about. And it takes what could be very intellectual spiritual concepts and makes them like digestible and accessible in ways that everybody can freaking understand.
Yeah. It's funny because like before I met you, I was diving into like dimensional reality and like quantum this and like string theory and like all this crazy stuff. And I was like, okay, like those are huge concepts and I can see them. I can kind of understand them and conceptualize them. But how am I supposed to embody any of that? How is that even supposed to like integrate into my being? And then I came into with the elements and, took Creation Coach Academy. And like, that was like, okay, this is how I can breathe this into my beingness. This is how I can distill this large, mentally complex concept and trickle it down into a digestible thing that I can actually embody within my beingness so that it can be expressed in the world instead of
Mm.
just this mental storm that takes place when you're trying to pull in all of this information. It's made a
And
huge difference.
Yeah, and then it actually gives you better access to all of that higher level dimensional stuff because you've created the space for it and you embodied the earth pieces, which are really, really potent and important, and you understand yourself. And so if anyone's like, I really want to learn all of that, just like Sydney, so you can weave it into what you're doing. You just message me if you'd like to get on the wait list for the Creation Coach Academy, where we train healers and mystics and those people that are here to be helpers, how to coach and facilitate with the elements as a template. And I'll be just actually, I'll just might as well share it here too. If we're releasing things, I am actually also kind of flipping the academy upside down on this next round because I have decided that people need to have an inward journey first. So we're going to be really tapping into people's like natal charts and their own life design to get them to get to know the elements as a template for creation first instead of at the end. And then we're going to share how to facilitate this information in groups and then how to take it into a one-on-one coaching practice. So it's all getting just yeah rewritten into something that is inward first, exactly like what you were saying. Like, how can you teach this if you don't have it within you?
Exactly. And I mean, I think that's why it's taken me almost 2 years, because it would be 2 years in October, November, I think is the when I started Creation Coach Academy when you first ran it. And yeah, it's taken me this much time to create that space and to do those things and to activate all of these pieces and parts and to create that deeper bond and embodiment with the elements so that I can go out and teach in the world and share the wisdom that they hold.
Yeah, and I mean, really, 2 years sounds like a long time, but it's really not. It's the blink of an eye to embody the literal how-to of creation, how it all works. Like, it's gonna take a bit of time. And I found that for myself, like, like year one, year two, amazing. But like now, year 10, year 15, like I can't even explain to you how good it is and how much deeper it gets. It's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
So we will be doing another round for facilitators to come on in and through to learn how to coach and facilitate using all of this. We have smaller initiations into the elements as well. So if you don't already have your deck of oracle cards, like grab them. And if you'd like to just really deepen your capacity to work with them and just be initiated in as an elemental wisdom keeper, there is the how to read the cards course that I do have as well, which will basically give you the how to be that channel and really directly communicate with the cards and the elements themselves for yourself first. And then if you want to, you can make some money doing that too. So that's the fun part, is that being facilitator for this wisdom gives people the most magical like ahas and mind-blowing experiences. And once you learn how to do it, it's the easiest thing in the world because we teach you how to do it for you first, and then you can just be like, and friends, let me share with you how you can do this too. So
Yeah, it just starts to flow. Like it's one of those things, like I don't even have to like consciously be like, oh, I'm tuning in. It can just be like, oh, this is like coming forward from my perspective, or oh, this is coming forward from my emotional space, or oh, this is like, and I can just see it and just like, at the snap of a finger, and it just gets easier and easier the more and more I connect.
oh, my dream has come true. There are so many coaches and facilitators who are talking from a place of knowledge from something they've read in a book. And I was like, this isn't the vibe. And I wanted to support people to be deeply embodied in the wisdom that they would be sharing with other people. And yeah, it works. So, what did you say one time? This work works if you work it?
Yep, the work works when you work it. I was like, that is definitely the key, that like when you actually do the work, it makes the change and it does the things that you want it to do.
Because you got the power in you.
Absolutely. So when you actually root into these things, and when you actually take the time, and when you actually tend to yourself, and when you actually illuminate the things, and when you actually tune into the divine feminine, divine masculine parts of yourself, and you create balance and coherence and, you know, all of those things, like it works. Just gotta do it.
And it'll change your freaking life. So if you're ready to reclaim your power, Sydney, make sure you drop that link in for people. And I'll do the same with the Oracle cards because it's just so much fun. I've been getting messages. I'm just going to celebrate this one last thing from people who joined my Creator Codes membership, where we're giving people this information as a personal thing, not to train to be a facilitator yet. And I'm getting messages saying, I'm so connected to nature. I feel like I feel so good. I feel like I'm no longer like needing substances or crutches to connect in the way that I want to connect. And I'm getting messages from people saying like, oh my gosh, this was exactly what I needed. Thank you. So the elements will show up for you exactly as you need them to, and they will be your besties like for the rest of time. So much fun.
I love them so much. Like if I could just immerse myself in the elements for the rest of my life, I would just do that. That's like perfect for me.
I mean, you are them. So like
Exactly.
you already will, and you are.
Yeah,
So
it's in the, I would say in the top two of my favorite tools, because I'm starting to like add an additional tool. So, but they're right there supporting that tool as well. So it's all connected. It's all
yeah, and
the same.
it is an and also practice. It's not like a standalone. Like I integrate it into my energy work, which is a really big part of what I'm doing and what I'm teaching next. The whole evolutionary alchemy energy modality that I've been doing energy work behind the scenes that isn't specifically elements, but it's all of the elements. I'm going to be teaching what I've been doing for several years, belief repatterning, dance, like all kinds of work can be informed with them. And even if you're not specifically teaching with the elements or talking about them, once you know them intimately, they get to be the background of what you're creating to make sure that what you're sharing has every component, right? You make sure the physical body and the physical realm is taken care of or mentioned and supported, as well as the mental and emotional and spiritual and action realms. So I think it gives facilitators and teachers a really great way of making sure that their programs, their teachings, their healings, whatever, are going to be well-rounded and actually give people what they need without leaving any bit out.
Absolutely agree, because that's been like a big piece that I had observed in like the past of just seeing like, oh, I'm like mindset, or I'm just energy, or I'm just this. And it's like, how can we create teachers, healers, leaders that have that, like you said, well-roundedness to their expression here? That's not just one thing and we're leaving out a piece over here, but rather and also of all the
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not one thing, it's actually everything. And it sounds like a lot, but really we break it down so it's only 5 things. Oh,
yeah.
Sydney, this has been so delightful. Thank you so much for connecting live today. If people have questions for Sydney, please drop them in. We'll make sure that she sees them. And I'm really proud because you walked this journey and I've seen where you were and where you are now and the shifts and the changes. Oh, I'm just so happy that you get to experience this and then also share it with the world.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for just like being a part of that journey, because like it was something I really needed. And by staying committed, by, being tenacious, even when I wanted to give up, or all of the things, like by just continuing the journey and walking it and continuing to have your support in different capacities has made like the world of difference to get me to this place, to get me to where I can be expanded, I can share, I can do these things like the voice activations, all of the energy work and things that, we've done in our time together has just been fucking magical. So
Oh, I love you. Thank you so much. We could talk forever, but we'll wrap it up here. Just inviting everyone to take a breath in. So everything that we've talked about that might be for you gets integrated with grace and ease. And yeah, thanks again. We'll talk soon. And just remember, if you're watching this, September's energy update will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Mountain Time inside the Luminous Evolution group. And it's Friday, September 1st for that. So good luck, Sydney, with reclamation.
reclamation.
Oh, like goosebumps.
I
So good.
loved it. As soon as I found the word, it was just like, ah.
Yes. So potent and powerful. So it's going to ripple out into the world. Everyone.
Bye for now.